Hi viewers, welcome to this session where I'm extremely glad to have with me one of my former students and a very dear student at that, Krishnan Achuth. Krishnan is a chartered accountant and he worked in EY for a few years, and then to go places further in his career, he went back to academics and did his MBA from IIM Lucknow, and then as expected moved into financial consulting. So Achyut is here with us to talk about his experience in his domain, generally explain what consulting is all about, and specifically his area, financial consulting, and his specific field of interest like mergers and acquisitions and all that. So B school aspirants like you should be able to gauge what the life of a consultant is, what the consulting world is all about, and lifestyle and all the other things that you would be definitely interested in. So, welcome, Krishnan, and good to have you with us.
Thank you so much, KK sir. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, first of all. Great to be interacting with you. For the benefit of the audience, KK sir was my mentor when I was preparing for CAT, not just in terms of the LRDI, the academic part of it, but in terms of the broader set of preparation, how to think about B schools in general, even after getting into B school, what to prioritize. And so he has been like a mentor all along. So really happy and proud to have this chat with him. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, Krishnan. Overwhelmed and humbled by your words as it is. Thank you so much, and pleasure to have you here. I forgot to mention that Krishnan is working with one of the big three consulting companies in the world, Bain Company. So, Krishnan, just talk about your work as it is, and what do you do, and then share, what the life of a consultant is, and take us through what is consulting, what are the domains. I mean, basically, share your experiences with us.
Right. So to start off with, my profile job description, so to speak of, is more generic. It's not exactly financial consulting. It's more a generic management consultant. So consulting, in very simple words, for the listeners, is basically helping businesses solve business problems at a very fundamental level. Now, depending on the kind of business problem that a external consulting firm is helping a business solve, it could be categorized into different types, different domains, etc. So the broad ambit comes on, it's what is called as management consulting. Now within that, there could be functional dimensions. There could be general consultants who are generalists who work on strategy related problems primarily, and could deal with any business related problem you could engage them. There could be functional specialists, consultants who work in a particular functional specialty of the business, like say operational consultants or HR consultants or financial consultants or IT tech consultants. So there are specialized firms, specialized consultants who provide businesses with solutions limited or focused on a particular domain, and they'll have deep domain expertise. I have been working with as KK sir pointed out, management consulting firm called Bain and Company. It is one of the big three globally, apart from McKinsey and BCG, and they are primarily into strategy consulting. Basically, when you think of it, it can be any problem statement related to the strategy of a business. It could be something as simple as my profits are not growing, help me, or I want to start or expand into a new market. Which market should I go into, or should I even think of doing that, or should I continue focused on my core market? Or I want to invest in a new company or acquire a new company, do an M&A. Is this the right time, or is that the right target to buy? Or it could be, I am generally going through a leadership change. My top leadership is changing. There is a succession in my board level. So how do I manage that change? What are the right steps that I need to put in place? So these are just examples of some of the strategy related problem statements that typically come to a strategy consulting firm like Bain. And my role in this essentially is I'm part of the team which helps that client coming with such a problem statement solve that problem. Like as you would think of it, it's not like a consultant is not somebody who would be the know all and end all of it. He's somebody who just comes in with an outside in view, who gives a perspective based on working with multiple such clients before, gives a view of, puts a structure to a problem. So typically when the very, very fundamental question that a lot of people, when they hear about consulting, would be like, why do somebody even need consulting? Like, why would a company, like, these are the problem statements that I just mentioned. These would be problem statements that any business ideally should be able to solve on its own. Like, why would you need external people? So where a consultant or an external firm typically adds value is to basically bring structure to a problem. So when you're inside a company, when you're in a business, you're always focused on incremental stuff. What do I do next tomorrow, or what is my immediate priority, what is my next this thing, and your focus therefore is on very, very tactical things. You're, at times, you lose the big strategic picture, and an external party can come and approach at a problem from a different lens. He can help you structure that problem, see the problem in different dimensions, and then along working with your team, help find solutions for it. So consultants don't bring in a magic wand, but they bring in a structured way of approaching a problem, work with the team of or management of the company, bring in expertise globally. Given their network and reach, they can, depending on the kind of problem, connect with experts on that problem globally and bring shape and structure and help the company solve that problem. So that is broadly what consulting tends to be. Talking about my experience personally, I finished business school in 2020 from IIM Lucknow, and joined Bain and Company off campus. And I have been, over the last 2 years, primarily working with clients in the consumer tech space, mostly e-commerce, video platforms, OTT, etc., and a little bit of private equity as well. Now, in terms of the kind of work I've done for these clients, again, on in the consumer tech sector, it has been mostly strategic projects like growth. I need a certain growth rate which I'm not able to meet. Help me identify where I'm going wrong. Help me devise certain actions which can help me course correct. Or it could be private equity. In the private equity space, it's typically due diligences, what is known as commercial due diligence. So I am a private equity fund looking to invest in a particular startup, and I already have a hypothesis in terms of whether that's a good enough business. That's why, after I've done an initial set of review myself, but I need a final validation in terms of, is that industry good enough, is that company good enough, what are the risks. That's why they come to a consulting firm, and like we as Bain would evaluate that target, would look at the business model, look at the competition, and then finally recommend whether it's a good enough bet for that private equity firm to go ahead with. So these are kind of some of the kind of work problem statements that I have been dealing with, and it's been a very, very exciting and equally challenging 2 years for me. A lot of new learnings, as sir mentioned at the beginning. I come from a finance background. I'm a chartered accountant, so a lot of it does help. The skills that you pick up from there obviously helps, but it's a profession where you learn every day, because every project will be a new client, a new problem statement, and you will need to basically think from scratch. It's not very repeatable in that sense. You cannot really use exactly what you did in a previous project in the new one. So it involves a lot of on the feet thinking, a lot of first principles based approach to a problem. While it's challenging, it's definitely very, very rewarding from a learning and career growth perspective as well.
You'd have had diverse clients and interesting experiences. Can you share some of those interesting experiences with us?
Yeah, again, in terms of experiences, depending on the industry and client, it could be very varied. So there would be projects where all the client stakeholders may not be fully aligned with what bringing a consultant in, or with what the top leadership wants to eventually achieve. So then there will obviously be a lot of element of people management. It's not just problem solving or data crunching for that matter. It's also a very, very people oriented job. So I, for example, had an instance where I was working on a project. It was basically a large scale transformation project for a company, which was a pet agenda of the CEO. And that required a lot of organizational changes to be effected at different departments. And we were, as a consulting firm, helping to coordinate that whole process, project manage it. And naturally, that we had very, very interesting situations where you'd have clients completely uncooperative or completely hostile to you, and then you will have to find ways and means to bring them onto your side, convince them the value that you are trying to create, and work with them, because at the end of the day the project success depends on you being able to coexist and work with the client team to give the best results. So it is also a job which involves a lot of people skills that way. So that is one. And maybe another one I can quote is a report or a publication that I worked on. So we as Bain bring out something called as the How India Shops Online report, which is essentially like a market study on the e-commerce space in India. So since that's been a space that I've closely been associated with at Bain, I was involved in the report last year's edition of the report. So it again throws up very, very interesting insights about like consumer. So again, depending on the kind of industry, there could be different nuances, but consumer-facing industries typically are more relatable. So because you're also on the other side buying products from e-commerce companies, doing things. So it's very relatable to understand how a consumer thinks, or study some of those aspects. So I always find consumer industries therefore very fascinating and very relatable, and especially if you're from a non-engineering background, those are industries that really are easier to connect than more hard tech or engineering or conventional manufacturing.
Your first example was absolutely fascinating for me, because I think it'll tell the viewers, particularly B school aspirants, that management consulting goes beyond just numbers and understanding strategy and things like that. And you mentioned about people skills. So
Right.
typically a lot of things, I mean, people management, selling your ideas, you may have the best of ideas, but then there will be roadblocks, and you need to actually sort of overcome that. Hold out the olive branch and win them over to your side. So all these HR skills also coming. It's not really an HR thing which is specifically for HR people. I mean, all these kind of people skills come in everywhere, and that is extremely, extremely fascinating. The thing what you said.
Just to add on to that thought, sir, I think if you ask me what are the two big skill sets that a consulting firm looks for, like for future MBA aspirants who will be listening to this as well, primarily are two things. One is problem solving, and second is communication. So there is a perception that it's a lot of it is purely problem solving, which is not really true. And especially the mix of these two changes drastically as you go up in your career in consulting. So initially, of course, you're more oriented to be a good problem solver. But however good a problem solver you are, if you're not able to communicate your ideas, if you're not able to like convince somebody on the other side of the table about the solution that you're coming up with, the whole things falls flat. So as you go up the ladder, as you go higher up, the mix actually changes. You need to be much better in communication. Your actual problem solving element comes down as you go up higher in the consulting ladder. So it's a combination of these two skills that essentially drives a professional in this domain.
And to carry this, talk about the consulting ladder. What is typically the career growth plan for a consulting person? And here I would like to also keep in mind one more thing, that you talk about recruitment from the top big B schools, and then the consulting firms also recruit from the next level of B schools, if I can apologetically say that, and then also from the IITs. I mean, they are non-MBAs, but IITs and top-notch IITs. So what is the entry level, and what is the career path for a consulting company, I mean, in a consulting company?
Right. So there would be marginal nuances to this answer depending on the different types of consulting firms that we just talked about. So I will focus my answer on strategy or general management consulting, and within that, as I said, there is the McKinsey, BCG, Bain, and maybe Kearney also the world. And then there are a lot of other there are the big four accounting firms who also have their management consulting wings. And then there are other firms like Accenture or niche domain specific consulting firms as well. So the career path hierarchy will be slightly different depending on the kind of firm, but I'll probably index my answer on based on my experience at Bain, but it will be largely similar. The designations might change, but largely similar in other firms. So there are typically two entry routes. One is the undergrad based route, which is what from IITs or certain top commerce colleges in the country, like St. Stephen's or SRCC, or those sort of a set of select colleges from which these consulting firms go hire directly. And then there is the campus hiring from B schools, which again there are two tiers to it. So typically from the top tier business schools, it's you're directly hired for front end consulting, the front end teams of consulting. So just to for context, most of these firms have a front office team, and there would be something called as a middle office team or a capability team, which is more a knowledge processing center for global offices of the same firm. So be it Bain, be it Deloitte, be it other firms, they all have these knowledge centers in India, which are more like mid office. So they support front office teams in India or in other parts of the world. They don't interact as much with clients directly, but they're more mid office functions that for. So the interface with the client is the difference between the mid office team and the front end consulting teams. As you come down with to the longer list of B schools, a lot of these firms hire for the mid office roles in one of their knowledge centers, and from there you will have to over time, as you grow up the ladder, progress into front end consulting. So that's how the typical flow works. Now, if you're joining from a typical top tier B school, you join as something called as an associate consultant or a junior consultant, and from there it's typically a 4-year journey to become a manager. So in your first year, you're a work stream member, or at the bottom of the food chain in consulting parlance, where you will be supporting a senior as part of a larger team on a particular client or a project. As you move up to the second or third year, you start leading the project, leading in the sense leading the execution of the project. There'll still be a manager above you, but you will actually lead the execution of the project. You'll have one or two work stream members under you helping you drive the results. And then, as I said, after a 4 to 5 year mark, you move up to a manager, where you no longer do the hands-on execution. You'll have a team under you actually delivering the results. You will be more face for the client, managing the client relationship, and more helping the team like pull up the answer or refine the answer, sort of, so to speak of. And at the manager level, typically another 3 to 4 years, you become what is called as a principal or an associate partner. The terminology, as I said, might vary firm to firm, which is becoming more of a business role. You will have multiple clients. Then at a manager level, you typically deal with 1 or 2 clients or 1 or 2 projects at a time. As you go up the ladder, as you become an associate partner or a principal, you have more market role. You need to bring in more business, more clients. It becomes more of a sales based role as well. And then maybe typically another 3 years, 3 to 4 years as an associate partner, you can make it as a partner in the firm, which is like the end point. After that, it's more or less like different dimensions within a partner. Like you might become a senior partner and so on. But that's like the end goal typically from a career progression standpoint. So if anywhere between 8 to 10 years after joining from a business school as a front end consulting role, you can aspire to reach the level of a partner in one of these firms.
And
From
just
the top,
to come in there, I think that is a position which is looked upon as with awe, in the consulting world. I mean, that's basically something like an aspiration goal for people who join the stream, right?
Right. So that's the stage where you start like completely owning. You become a part of the ownership of the firm. You start getting a share of profits, and you're responsible for the overall growth of the firm. And so that's like a CXO level role if you think of a normal conventional corporate. So therefore that's like the end goal or a significant career milestone, so to speak of, in a consulting trajectory. Now, in terms of difference with the B school track versus somebody joining from an IIT or a top undergrad college, it's just typically a 1 year difference. So they join like a 1 year below the level at which somebody from a top B school joins. So your journey to manager might be, instead of 4 years, you might have to go 5 years to become a manager. So that is the marginal difference. Now coming to the other tier, where you join in the mid office role, typically you might take anywhere between 2 to 4 years there to be able to transition to a front end role. Again, everybody need not necessarily transition to a front end role. Those those organizations also have their own structured career path where you can go to leadership, choose to continue there and go to leadership roles. But if you want to move on or transition to front end client facing consulting, it's typically a 2 to 3 year time frame depending on your performance there. So that 2 to 3 years basically gets added to what you would have otherwise been if you're directly joined front end consulting from B school. So that's like the typical career journey structure.
And if you go back to the structure for people from top-notch B schools, again, there is something for excellent, outstanding performers, something like a fast track, isn't it? I mean,
Right, right. So one, if you are already somebody with experience before business school, again, experience, typically relevant experience from a consulting standpoint, like something to do with strategy or something to do with any form of consulting. And firms, from firm to firm, the cutoff would be different. It might be at least 24 months in some cases. It might be 36 months, 40 months in some other firms. Depending on that, you might get a slight head start over your peers from business school. So you might join like 6 months ahead of them. So instead of becoming due for the say a manager in 4 years, you might be due in 3.5 or 3 years, depending on what level. So that depends on your pre-MBA work ex. The other bit is, if you have after joining the firm also, all these firms are typically highly meritocracy. So you will have a half yearly or quarterly performance evaluation cycles and appraisals. So those who do exceptionally well there also naturally tend to go up the ladder faster. So the indicative years which I mentioned earlier, those are for the typical average progression. But obviously for high performers who have like exceptional ratings in their initial years, naturally progress faster than that. So that option always is there, given these are all highly meritocracy based firms.
and for the benefit of the viewers, we need to also mention that obviously when we're looking at recruitment from top B schools into all these consulting firms, we have a mix of both freshers and people with work ex.
Definitely. The jumpstart of 6 months or 1 year, that goes to a very few or very limited number of people that these firms hire from campuses. It's typically all everybody else joins at the same level, and a large proportion, increasingly large proportion of freshers are also being hired. Conventionally, there used to be a trend of a lot of these firms preferring people with a little bit of work ex, but that has drastically changed over the last 2 to 3 years, if you ask me. And the proportion of freshers making it as has steadily been improving. So definitely no biases there.
And what kind of work life that people have? I mean, we know that people put in a lot of work hours every day. It's pretty strenuous. It's something like a stretch life kind of. And also talk about the perks which come along with it. I mean, that's something which is a big carrot for people who are looking at consulting firms. So tell the aspirants that also.
Definitely. Yeah, so it is, as the perception suggests to some extent is true. It is a demanding career. You will be expected to put in long hours. The reason that they go to business schools, top business schools, and hire people is because business schools also train students to a large extent. For those who are not familiar yet, at least in your first year of business school, it will be very intense. You will have you will be put under a lot of duress. You will have to manage time very efficiently, and it will be a stretch role, and that is sort of continued in consulting as a profession as well. So in terms of hours, you typically put in anywhere between 60 to 80 hours a week, depending on the kind of firm and the kind of time of the year. That like a 60 to 65-hour week is a normal, so to speak, of in this profession. So if you're somebody looking at this as an aspirational profession, you should be mentally ready to put in that sort of work. Is it the worst? Not really, because you have professions like investment banking where you'll have to put in like an 80-hour, 90-hour shift every week on an average in most firms. So it's not as comfortable a life in terms of the number of hours that you have to put in, like say most other general corporate roles. But definitely the benefits and perks also come with it. So the financial benefits, of course, most of these top consulting firms pay good entry level salaries itself. While on B school, you might have certain corporate roles, but which might be slightly better paying at times. But the jump that you get at each level in this profession is significant. So as I said, when you after your initial 2 years, there is a promotion level. You become from a junior consultant to a senior consultant, and at that level, there will be a significant uptick in your compensation. Again, another 2 years later, as you do for a manager, that is again a significant uptick. So unlike in the industry, where your annual increments once you join would be more uh, moderate or more linear, here it is not so much, and it's more exponential as you go up the ladder. So definitely the compensation. The softer aspects, obviously, there are a lot of perks to the profession as well. Again, it's a two-sided coin. So the profession involves a lot of travel inherently, because typically you work on site at the client, you travel wherever the client is, you travel to their offices, work with them on a real-time basis. In Bain, for example, we have a system where Monday to Thursday you travel to the client. Fridays everybody goes to their actual Bain office. That's more to build an office connectedness as well. So Monday morning you fly into wherever the client is, and Thursday nights you fly back. So that, especially on the longer term, is a little bit of demanding on your personal life, because it's a lot of travel if you think of to do week in and week out. But it comes with the perks of air miles, hotel points, loyalty points, etc. So the stories of consultants going on free holidays using their travel miles or hotel points, that is true to a large extent.
Yeah, and the hotels that you stay in and all
Right,
those kind of things.
right. Of course, you get like you get to stay in really plush hotels, and
Yeah.
so these
You're
are
really
like
pampered in the sense, like, the kind of expenditures you're allowed on things like food, all those kind of things. So
right.
everything is taken care of. And generally, I think that's what viewers should understand, is that Krishnan talked about the strenuous work that is in consulting, but at the same time, they're very, very well taken care of.
Yeah, totally. And it's a profession. Consultants are paid really well by the clients also in terms of billing. They are expensive, and therefore these firms also make sure to take care of their talent that ways, because at the end of the day, what is a consulting firm selling to the client? It is the talent pool. See, we have the best of minds which we have recruited from the best of places, and that is their core asset, and therefore there is an extra effort to try and make sure people are happy and people are pampered. So all these fringe benefits, be it your travel, be it uh, like reimbursements or your hotel stays, all of that are like best in class, as good as you can get in any industry. So definitely those are some of the softer aspects of the perks.
And again, a big perk is that you directly at a very young age get to interact with the very senior management people in your clients, and you get to know people, you get to network with people. That's a huge, huge plus, because in most of the other domains, you don't get access to the senior management. I mean, it takes time even to have an exposure, okay, in your own company, that is. I mean, let alone with other companies and in the industry as a whole.
Exactly. Like just to illustrate, like I, as a junior consultant in my first year after business school, was able to be in rooms in meetings with the CFO and the CEO of like top top corporations in the country. That kind of exposure is very difficult to get in a lot of other professions. You might join as a mid-level manager, and it'll take you years to get that kind of access to the CXO suite. But once you're on the consulting side, as I said, because these are big stakes, big impact projects for the clients as well, they always are give you an ear. You're in direct contact with a lot of people at the CXO level from the clients. So that, from a personal development perspective, is a huge booster. The kind of confidence it gives you, the kind of soft skills that you're able to build, and the longer term network that you can develop, those are definitely huge pluses in the profession.
Oh, great, Krishnan. I mean, you covered exhaustively, extensively, and very succinctly, everything to know about consulting, and you made it sound exactly the way that profession is, and I hope that this serves as a motivation to a lot of youngsters who are listening to this, and makes them, involved in their preparation for CAT, because we talked about top-notch B schools, and that significantly is the point that we would like to push here. So there's a lot of benefits that you get in your career. The better your CAT preparation, the better is your results going to be, and the better the B school that you're going to get, and the more wonderful your career is going to pan out. And so, Krishnan serves as an inspiration to all of you, and people like him have been, a few years back. I mean, he graduated in 2020 from IIM Lucknow. So in 2018, he was preparing and writing CAT just like all of you. And now, a few years later, when I compare with the Krishnan that I knew in class, I know that you have gone places. I mean, the way you come across, the way you put across things, the confidence that comes through, and the seasoning that has happened over the years really comes through. Okay. And I wish you very well, all the success in your career and in your life from the bottom of my heart, and keep doing well. You've always been a very, very diligent student, somebody who has taken things very, very seriously, and it has actually shown, the benefits have actually shown through. And keep doing well, Krishnan. All the very,
Thank you
very,
so much,
very
sir. Really kind of you to say that. To all the aspirants out there, these next few months, I know it's a difficult phase. It's a lot of pressure, a lot of intensity, but trust me, the payoff, it pays off really well. If you get into a good business school, in terms of your long term career prospects, the skills that you build, the opportunities that you get, it's immensely different depending on where you end up. So do put down your heads and focus fully on over the next few months, and trust me, rest of your life you will always thank the decision to put in that extra effort over this phase of your life.
Very well said. Very rightly said, Krishnan. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you
And
so much, sir. Pleasure.
keep going places. Okay. And keep in touch. All the very
Definitely.
best to you. God bless.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.